there is not going to be a second story. It'll probably be last unless Vadir doesn't come. And we'll go into the defenders, and I'd give $1. So today's review on the Roaring Trumpet is, we'll start at, let's see, on page 22, where, let's see. Okay, Shay is gulping again and going, should he go with them? That's what he's thinking. So that paragraph where he's considering whether he's going to go, and then he impulsively agrees. So that'll start us out.
Okay, thanks.
So everybody's been sent to bed by Thor in Sphere's household, and but Harold has the conversation with Heimdall, and they play the game of 7 questions, and then he finds out what Ragnarok is, which is the end of the world, and that it's the battle between the giants and the Azar. And so then when he gets up and gets invited to breakfast, he gets asked if he wants to go by Loki. So let's see, we need Lila. Are you going to be able to be our narrator today?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Well, come on up. And Vidav and Lost is going to be Thiofi, and Loki is Rocky, and I'm going to be Thor. And have you understood where I was suggesting that we start, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Are we ready?
Yep. Can anyone hear me?
Hey.
What does it say?
Shay gulped again. Should he go with them? He had come looking for adventure, but enough was enough. What is adventure? He remembered reading somewhere with the answer. Somebody else having a hell of a tough time 1,000 miles away. Only Thiofi had come around the table and said in a low voice,
Look, my sister Roskva is staying here at the crossroads because the giant killer don't think Jotunheim would be any place for a woman. That leaves me all alone with these Aesir and an awful lot of giants. I'd be mighty obliged if you could see a way to keep me company.
I'll do it.
Then he realized that his impulsiveness had led him in for something. If Loki and Thor were not sure that they could recover the hammer without help, it was likely to be an enterprise of some difficulty. Still, neither Aesir nor giants knew about the matches or the revolver. They would do for magic till something better came along.
I've already spoken to the Lord of the Goat Chariot. He'd be glad to have you come, but he says you mustn't disgrace him by asking to eat turnips. You'd best do something about those clothes. They're more than light for this climate. Sverabonder will lend you some others.
Sver was glad to take the inadequate polo coat and riding breeches as security for the loan of some baggy Norse garments. Shay, newly dressed in accordance with his surroundings, went outside. A low, cheerless sun shone on the blinding white of new snow. As the biting cold nipped his nose, Shay was thankful for the yards of coarse wool in which he was swathed. The goat chariot was waiting. It was as big as a Conestoga wagon, notwithstanding that there were only 2 wheels. A line of incised runic letters was etched in black around the gold rim. The body was boldly painted red and gold. But the goats constituted the most remarkable feature. One was black, the other white, and they were as big as horses.
This here's Tooth Gnasher,
said Thialfi, indicating the nigh goat,
and that there's Tooth Gritter.
waving at the off goat, the black one.
Say, friend Harold, I'd be mighty obliged if you'd help me tote the stuff out.
Shay, ignorant of what the stuff was, followed Thialfi to the bounder's house, where the latter pointed to a big oak chest. This, he explained, held the Asir's belongings. Thialfi hoisted one end by its bronze handle. Shay took hold of the other, expecting it to come up easily. The chest did not move. He looked at Thialfi, but the latter merely stood, holding his end off the floor without apparent effort. So Shay took his handle in both hands and gave a mighty heave. He got his end up, but the thing seemed packed with ingots of lead. The pair went through the door, Thialfi leading, Shay staggering and straining along in the rear. He almost yelled to Thialfi to hurry and ease the horrible strain on his arms, but this would involve so much loss of face that he stuck it out. When they reached the chariot, Shay dropped his end into the snow and almost collapsed across the chest. The icy air hurt his lungs as he drew great gasps of breath.
All right, you catch hold here, and we'll shove her aboard.
Shay forced his unwilling body to obey. Their men handled one end of the chest up under the tail of the chariot, and somehow got the whole thing aboard. Shay was uncomfortably aware that Thialfi had done 3/4 of the work, but the rustic seemed not to notice. With the load in, Shay leaned against one of the shafts, waiting for his heart to slow down and for the aches in his arms and chest to subside.
Now it is to be seen that Thialfi has persuaded another mortal to share his labours. Convenient is this for Thialfi.
Here was the foxy-faced Loki, with the usual note of mockery in his voice. Once more Shay's temper began to rise. Thialfi was all right, but it did look as though he had talked Shay into coming along for the dirty work. Whoa! Shay suddenly remembered Loki's title, Bringer of Discord, and Thialfi's warning about his jokes. Uncle Fox would doubtless think it very funny to get the two mortals into a quarrel, and for the sake of his own credit, he didn't dare let the god succeed. Just then came a tug at his cloak. He whirled around. Toothgritter had seized the lower edge of the garment in his teeth and was trying to drag it off him.
Hey!
Cried Shay and dragged back. The giant goat shook his head and held on while Loki stood with his hands on his hips, laughing a deep belly laugh. He made not the slightest move to help Shay. Thialfi came running around and added his strength to Shay's. The cloak came loose with a rip. The two mortals tumbled backward. Toothgritter calmly munched the fragment he had torn from the cloak and swallowed it. Shay got up scowling and faced a Loki purple with amazement.
Say, you. What the hell's so damn funny?
At that instant, Thialfi seized him from behind and whirled him away as though he were a child.
Shut up, you nitwit. Don't you know he could burn you to a cinder just by looking at you?
But he's... Go.
Oh, nothing. Them's gods. No matter what they do, you mustn't say boo or they'll do something worse. That's how things be.
Okay.
Grumbled Shay, reflecting that rustics the world over were a little too ready to accept that's how things be, and that when the opportunity came he would get back some of his own from Loki.
You want to be careful around them goats. They're mean, and they eat most anything. I remember a funny thing has happened a fortnight back. We found 5 men that had frozen to death on the moor. I says we ought to take 'em in so their folks could give 'em burial. Thor says, all right, take 'em in. When we got to the house we was going to stay at, the bonder didn't see as how there was any point in bringing 'em inside, 'cause when they got thawed out, they'd get land of strong. so he stacked them in the yard like firewood. Next morning, would you believe it? Those goats had gotten at him and ate him up. Everything but their buckles.
Thialfi chuckled to himself. As she was digesting this example of Norse humor, there came a shout of,
"Come on, mortals!"
from Thor, who had climbed into the chariot. He clucked to the goats, who leaned forward. The chariot wheels screeched and turned.
Hurry!
Cried Thialfi and ran for the chariot. He had reached it and jumped aboard with a single huge bound before Shay even started. The latter ran behind the now rapidly moving vehicle and tried to hoist himself up. His fingers, again numbed with cold, slipped, and he went sprawling on his face in the snow. He heard Loki's infuriating laugh. As he pulled himself to his feet, he remembered bitterly that he had made this journey to escape the feeling of insignificance and maladjustment that his former life had given him. There was nothing to do but run after the chariot again. Thialfi pulled him over the tail and slapped the snow from his clothes.
Next time, you better get a good grip before you try to jump. You know what it says in Havamal. It is better to live than to lie a corpse. The quick man catches the cart.
Thor, at the front of the chariot, said something to the goats. They broke from a trot to a gallop. Shay clutched the side of the vehicle. He became aware that it had no springs. He found he could take the jolting best by flexing his legs and yielding to the jerks. Loki leaned toward him, grinning.
"Hi, Turnip Harold, let us be merry."
Shay smiled uncertainly. Manner and voice were friendly, but it might conceal some new malicious trick. Uncle Fox continued airily.
"Be merry while you can. These hill giants are of uncertain humor where we go. He, I remember, a warlock named Burger. He put a spell on one of the hill giants, so he married a goat instead of a girl. The giant cut Burger open, tied one end of his entrails to a tree, and chased him round it. Ha ha ha!"
The anecdote was not appetizing, and the chariot was bounding on at the same furious pace, throwing its passengers into the air every time it hit a bump. Up, down, bang! Up, down, bang! Shay began to regret his breakfast.
You look poorly, friend Harold. Sort of goose green. Shall I get something to eat?
Shay had been fighting his stomach in desperate dread of losing further prestige, but the word eat ended the battle. He leaned far over the side of the chariot. Loki laughed. Thor turned at the sound and drowned Loki's laughter in his own roar of his own.
Ha ha ha! If you foul up my chariot, Turnip Harold, I'll make you clean it.
There was a kind of good-natured contempt in the tone, more galling than Uncle Fox's amusement. Shay's stomach finally ceased its convulsions, and he sat down on the chest, wishing he were dead. Perhaps it was the discomfort of the seat, but he soon stood up again, forcing himself to grin.
I'll be all right now. I'm just not used to such a pace.
Thor turned his head again and rumbled.
You think this fast, Springling? You have no any experience of speed. Watch.
He whistled to the goats, who stretched their heads forward and really opened out. The chariot seemed to spend most of its time in the air. At intervals, it would hit a ridge on the road with a thunderous bang and then take off again. Shay clung for dear life to the side, estimating their speed at something between 60 and 70 miles an hour. This is not much a modern automobile on a concrete road, but something quite different in a two-wheeled, springless cart on a rutted track.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Yelled Thor, carried away by his own enjoyment.
Hang on, here's a curve.
Instead of slackening speed, the goats fairly leaped, banking inward on the turn. The chariot lurched in the opposite direction. Shay clung with his eyes closed, and one arm over the side.
Yee!
It went on for 10 more minutes before Thialfi suggested lunch. Shay found himself actually hungry again, but his appetite quailed at the sight of some of the slabs that looked like scorched leather.
What's that?
Smoked salmon. Put one end in your mouth like this, then you bite, then you swallow. You have enough sense to swallow, I suppose.
Shay tried it. He was amazed that any fish could be so tough, but as he gnawed, he became aware of a delicious flavor. When I get back, he thought, I must look up some of this stuff. Rather, if I get back. The temperature rose during the afternoon. Toward evening, the wheels were throwing out fans of slush. Thor roared.
I'll try to. Okay, I'm in. I got my line. Bye. Whoa! Sorry
And the
about the
goats
phone.
stopped. That's okay. They were in a hollow between low hills, gray save where the snow had melted to show dark patches of grass. In the hollow itself, a few discouraged-looking spruces showed black in the twilight.
Here we camp. Goat steak would be our feasting had we but fire.
What does he mean?
It's one of the Thunderer's magic tricks. He slaughters Tooth Gnasher or Tooth Gritter, and we can eat all but the hide and bones. Then he magics them back to life.
Uncertain it is, enemy of the worm, whether my fire spell will be effective here. In this hill giant land, there are spells against spells. Your lightning flash?
It can shiver and slay, but not kindle in this stamp. You have a new warlock there. Why not make him work?
Shay had been feeling for his matches. They were there and dry. This was his chance.
That'll be easy. I can make your fire as easy as snapping my fingers. Honest.
Thor glared at him with suspicion.
Few are the weaklings equal to my works. For my part, I always hold that strength and courage are the first requirements of a man. But I will not gainsay that occasionally my brothers feel otherwise, and it may be that you can do as you say.
There is also cleverness, wielder of Mjolnir. Even your hammer blows would be worthless if you did not know where to strike. And it may be that this outlander can show us some new thing. Now I propose a contest. We two and the warlock. The first of us to make the firelight shall have a blow at either of the others.
Hey, if Thor takes a swat at me, you'll have to get a new warlock.
That will not be difficult.
Loki grinned and rubbed his hands together. Though Shay decided the sly god would find something funny about his mother's funeral, for once he was not caught. He grinned back and thought he detected a flicker of approval in Uncle Fox's eyes. Shay and Thialfi tramped through the slush to the clump of spruces. As he pulled out his supposedly rust-proof knife, Shay was dismayed to observe that the blade had developed a number of dull red freckles. He worked manfully, hacking down a number of trees and branches. They were piled on a spot from which the snow had disappeared, although the ground was still sopping.
Okay, who's going to try first?
Don't be more foolish than you have to. Redbeard, of course.
Thor walked up to the pile of brush and extended his hands. There was a blue glow of corona discharge around them, and a piercing crack as bright electric sparks leaped from his fingertips to the wood. The brush stirred a little, and a few puffs of water vapor rose from it. Thor frowned in concentration. Again the sparks crackled, but no fire resulted.
Too damp is the wood. Now you shall make the attempt, sly one.
Loki extended his hands and muttered something too low for Shay to hear. A rosy violet glow shone from his hands and danced among the brush. In the twilight, the strange illumination lit up Loki's sandy red goatee, high cheekbones, and slanting brows with startling effect. His lips moved almost silently. The spruce steamed gently. It did not light. Loki stepped back. The magenta glow died out.
A night's work. Let us see what our warlock can do.
She had been assembling a few small twigs, rubbing them into dryness on his clothes, and arranging them like an Indian teepee. They were still dampish, but he supposed spruce would contain enough resin to light.
Now, let everybody watch. This is strong magic.
He felt around in the little container that held his matches until he found some of the non-safety kitchen type. His three companions held their breaths as he took out a match and struck it against the box. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still no result. He threw the match away and essayed another, again without success. He tried another, and another, and another. He tried two at once. He put away the kitchen matches and got out a box of safety matches. The result was no better. There was no visible reason. The matches simply would not light.
I'm sorry. Something has gone wrong. If you just wait a minute, I'll look it up in my book of magic formulas.
There was just enough light left to read by. Shay got out his Boy Scout manual. Surely it would tell him what to do. If not with failing matches, at least it would instruct him in the art of rubbing sticks. He opened it at random and peered, blinked his eyes, shook his head, and peered again. The light was good enough, but the black marks on the page, which presumably were printed sentences, were utterly meaningless. A few letters looked vaguely familiar, but he could make nothing out of the words. He leafed rapidly through the book. It was the same senseless jumble of hen tracks everywhere. Even the few diagrams meant nothing without the text. Harold Shay stood with his mouth open and not the faintest idea of what to do next.
Well, where is your warlock fire?
In the background, Loki tittered.
He perhaps prefers to eat turnips uncooked.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm afraid it won't work.
Thor lifted his massive fist.
It is time to put an end to this lying and feeble child of man who raises our hopes and then condemns us to a dinner of cold salmon.
No, slayer of giants. Hold your hand. He furnishes us with something to laugh at, which is always good in this melancholy country. I may be able to use him where we are going.
Thor slowly lowered his arm.
Yours be the responsibility. I am not unfriendly to the children of men, but for liars I have no sympathy. What I say I can do, and that will I do.
If you please, sir, there's a dark something up yonder.
He pointed toward the head of the valley.
Maybe we can find shelter.
Okay, this is where we're going to stop. It's not
I
quite
thought so.
dramatic cliffhanger, but we do want to get to the two other stories. Thank you all. Let's see. Vidira, I don't see her. So I think Muspel Spark, do you have sound?
Oh, I think she's here. She's here, isn't she?
Oh, good. Vidira, great. Come on up and call up your cast for Birds of a Feather.